Good day. I am Renz Joal A. Borais from Team E, Bsit 2D Non-STEM, and I will discuss to you the sleeping barber problem and the dining philosopher's problem under the process synchronization in operating system. So let's get started. First is, I will be discussing the sleeping barber problem. When we talk about the sleeping barber problem, it is a classic inter-process communication and synchronization problem between multiple operating system processes. Also, the problem is analogous to that of keeping a barber working when there are customers, and resting when there are none, and doing so in an orderly manner. And the sleeping barber problem is often attributed to Edgar Dijkstra, one of the pioneers in computer science. And now, I will be discussing the conditions in the sleeping barber problem. The first condition is, if there is no customer, then the barber sleeps in his own chair. Next is, when a customer arrives, the barber has to wake up. Lastly, if there are many customers, and the barber is cutting a customer's hair, then the remaining customers either wait if there are empty chairs in the waiting room or they leave if no chairs are empty. To make the conditions more clear, the photo above is the flowchart of the conditions of the sleeping barber problem. And now, we are going to the problems that occur in the sleeping barber problem, which is the deadlock and starvation. And I will be starting with the deadlock. There might be a scenario in which the customer ends up waiting on the barber and a barber waiting on the customer, which would result to a deadlock. An example scenario of this is when a customer walks in and sees the barber still cutting hair. While waiting, he went to the comfort room. Simultaneously, the barber finishes cutting the hair of the first customer and checks if a customer is waiting at the lobby. Since there are no customers in the lobby, the barber decided to go back to his chair and sleep. Unbeknownst to the second customer, he didn't know that the first customer has left the barber shop. Thus, the second customer keeps waiting. And this is how deadlock occurs in the sleeping barber problem. And now, we are going to the solution for the deadlock that occurs in the sleeping barber problem. The solution to this problem involves the use of 3 semaphores, out of which one is a mutex or binary semaphore. The 3 semaphores are customer, helps in counting the waiting customers; barber, to check the status of the barber, either idle or not; number of free WR seats, to keep the count of the available seats, so customer either wait if there is free seats or leave if there are none. Next is 1 mutex, access WR seats, a mutex which allows the customer to get exclusive access to the number of free seats and allows them to increase or decrease the number. Next is the starvation problem. Starvation might happen to a customer who is waiting for a long time, and when the customers don't follow order, or when the barber calls out a customer randomly. And now, we are going to the solution for the starvation that occurs in the sleeping barber problem. The problem of starvation can be solved by utilizing a queue where customers are added as they arrive, so that the barber may serve them on a first come, first serve basis, or FIFO. Now, we are going to the dining philosopher's problem. When we talk about the dining philosopher's problem, it is another classic synchronization problem, which is used to evaluate situations where there is a need of allocating multiple resources to multiple processes. And now, we are going to the problem that occurs in the dining philosopher's problem. The dining philosopher's problem states that there are 5 philosophers sharing a circular table, and they eat and think alternately. There is a bowl of rice for each of the philosophers, and 5 chopsticks. A philosopher needs both their right and left chopsticks to eat. A hungry philosopher may only eat if there are both chopsticks available. Otherwise, a philosopher puts down their chopstick and begin thinking again. And now, I will be discussing the conditions in the dining philosopher's problem. The first condition is the philosophers are either thinking or eating. They do not talk to each other. Second is the philosophers can only fetch chopsticks placed between them and their neighbors. Third, the philosophers cannot take their neighbors' chopsticks away while they are eating. Lastly, no philosophers should starve to death and wait over a certain amount of time before she acquires both chopsticks. Next is, we are going to the solutions for the problems that occurs in the dining philosopher's problem. The first solution is the resource hierarchy solution. Dijkstra, the creator of this classic situation, and proposed this solution. The idea is this. First, each resource, in this case the chopsticks, is assigned a partial order. Next is, all resources will be requested in order. That is, if a unit of work, a philosopher, needs chopstick number 1 and number 2. She needs to acquire chopstick number 1 first, and then chopstick number 2. Third, the order in which the unit of work releases the resources does not matter. It does not matter if the philosopher puts down chopstick number 1 or number 2 first. This design guarantees deadlock-free. Its logic precludes the situation where all 5 philosophers pick up their chopsticks simultaneously. If 4 philosophers have already picked up 1 chopstick, only the highest numbered chopstick will remain on the table. So, the 5th philosopher cannot pick up any chopstick. The second solution is the arbitrator solution. The idea of this solution is to introduce a third party that monitors the usage of resources. In this case, we would properly call it a waiter. The principles are as follows. First, when a unit of work wishes to access a resource, it asks the arbitrator for permission first. That is, when a philosopher wishes to eat, she first asks the waiter. Second, the arbitrator gives one permission at a time. Third, only the unit that has the permission can access shared resources. Lastly, releasing a resource does not need permissions. There are two major setbacks for this solution. First of all, a new central entity is introduced, which would require additional resources. Also, it results in reduced parallelism. If a philosopher is eating, and one of their neighbors requests the chopsticks, all other philosophers must wait until this request has been fulfilled, even if their chopsticks are still on the table. The third and last solution is the Chandi and Misra solution. K. Manichandi and J. Misra introduced this solution in 1984. First, chopsticks have two states, clean and dirty. All chopsticks are initialized to dirty. Second, the chopsticks are allocated to the philosophers with the lower id in the pair at the first place. No chopsticks on the table. Third, when a philosopher wishes to eat, she must obtain the chopsticks from her neighbors. If she does not have the chopsticks, she sends a request message to the neighbor who has them. Fourth, when a philosopher with a chopstick receives a request message, if the fork is clean, the philosopher keeps it. If the fork is dirty, the philosopher cleans it and sends the fork over. Lastly, after eating, the philosopher's chopsticks becomes dirty. If another philosopher has previously requested one of the chopsticks, the philosopher cleans and sends it. And this concludes my discussion on the sleeping barber and the dining philosopher's problem. Thank you for watching!